Kevin Thomas stands in the bustling marketplace on Zarka, his eyes fixed on a sight that churns his stomach. Three Wadi sisters, their iridescent skin shimmering under the harsh desert sun, stand on a makeshift auction block, their large, expressive eyes filled with fear and resignation. Their parents' faces etched with desperation, accept a handful of credits from a sneering slaver. The human trader's fists clench at his sides. At 28, he's seen his share of the galaxy's darker corners, but this crosses a line. The eldest sister, Lita, catches his gaze. Something in her eyes, a mix of defiance and sorrow, ignites a fire in Kevin's chest. Without hesitation, he pushes through the crowd. Alien merchants and buyers hiss and growl as he shoves past. Kevin reaches the auction block just as a cracksnore, a brutish species known for their cruel treatment of slaves, raises a meaty appendage to bid. "I'll take them," Kevin announces, his voice cutting through the marketplace chatter. He empties his credit chip, the entirety of his savings, onto the auctioneer's table. The crowd falls silent, all eyes on the human who dares to interfere. The auctioneer, a spindly Zarkon with multifaceted eyes, clicks its mandibles in surprise. "Sold," it chittered, "to the human." As Kevin moves to escort the sisters away, a heavy hand lands on his shoulder. He turns to face Grakthor, a towering Wadi slaver with a reputation as cruel as it is far-reaching. "You overstep, human," Grakthor growls, his voice like gravel. "These are not yours to take. Return my merchandise." Kevin stands his ground, acutely aware of the sisters huddling behind him. "I bought them, fair and square," he retorts, heart pounding. "They're free now." Grakthor's face contorts in rage. "Free? You fool! You violate our ways, our agreements with your kind." The marketplace erupts in murmurs. Humans and Wadi have a tenuous relationship at best, and Kevin's actions threaten to upset the delicate balance. He feels the weight of eyes upon him, aliens of all species watching to see how this will play out. Lita steps forward, her sisters clinging to her. "Why?" she asks Kevin, her melodic voice tinged with suspicion. "Why would you do this?" Kevin meets her gaze, struck by the complexity of emotions swirling in her alien eyes. "Because it's right," he says simply. A commotion at the edge of the crowd draws their attention. Grakthor's enforcers, burly Wadi with shock batons, push their way through. Kevin realizes they're out of time. "We need to go," he urges the sisters. "Now!" They hesitate for a moment, torn between fear of the unknown and the familiar horror of their former life. Then Lita nods, decision made. Kevin leads them through the marketplace, dodging between stalls and confused aliens. Behind them, Grakthor's roar of fury spurs his enforcers to give chase. As they run, news of the incident spreads like wildfire. Across the galaxy, communication channels light up. On Earth, the ambassador to the Galactic Council receives an urgent message. The Wadi government demands an explanation for this human's interference in their cultural practices. Kevin and the sisters reach the spaceport, lungs burning from the desert air. His ship, the Starbound, sits on the landing pad, a beacon of hope. As they sprint up the boarding ramp, Kevin's mind races. He's responsible for these three now. He's made an enemy of Grakthor, and he might have just jeopardized humanity's standing in the galactic community. The ship's engines roar to life as Kevin slides into the pilot's seat. Lita takes the co-pilot chair, her sisters securing themselves in the back. As the Starbound lifts off, evading the first wave of pursuit ships, Kevin glances at Lita. The attraction he felt earlier has grown, complicated by the intensity of their situation. Lita meets his eyes, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty in her gaze. As they break atmosphere, leaving Zarka behind, Kevin knows their adventure is just beginning. In a galaxy where humanity is still proving its worth, his actions today could elevate or doom his species' reputation. But looking at the freed sisters, he knows he'd do it all again in a heartbeat. As the Starbound broke through Zarka's atmosphere, Kevin's moment of triumph quickly faded. The ship's long-range sensors lit up like a Terran Christmas tree, signaling multiple pursuit vessels closing in fast. "We've got company," Kevin announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "Looks like Grakthor's personal cruiser and Wadi government ships?" Lita leaned forward, her iridescent skin reflecting the flickering lights of the cockpit. The central government must have been alerted. This is worse than we thought. Kevin's stomach churned. He'd known there would be consequences, but he hadn't anticipated this level of response. The Starbound was a capable ship, but it wasn't built for prolonged chases or combat. "There's an asteroid field nearby," Lita said, her large eyes fixed on the navigation display. "I can guide us through. My people have a natural affinity for spatial awareness." Kevin hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "Show me what you've got." As Lita's slender fingers joined his on the controls, Kevin felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with the ship's systems. Their bodies were close, almost touching, and he became acutely aware of her alien yet alluring presence. In the back of the ship, Nira and Vela had begun exploring their new surroundings. The younger sisters' voices drifted forward, a mix of excitement and trepidation as they discovered the unfamiliar human environment. "Kevin," Vela called out, her melodic voice tinged with curiosity. "What is this device?" "Little busy right now," Kevin replied, his focus split between piloting and the growing proximity alerts. "Just don't touch anything that looks important." As the Starbound entered the asteroid field, Kevin's communication panel lit up with an incoming transmission. The logo of Earth's Interstellar Affairs Office flashed on the screen. "Not now," Kevin muttered, swiping the call away. But moments later, a text message appeared. "Urgent. Surrender immediately at nearest human outpost. Wadi government demands return of sisters. Diplomatic crisis imminent. Compliance mandatory." Kevin's heart sank. He'd known his actions would have repercussions, but the reality of it hit him like a punch to the gut. He glanced at Lita, her graceful movements guiding them through the treacherous field of space rocks. "Lita," he said softly, "we need to talk." As Kevin explained the message, Lita's expression shifted from shock to willpower. "There's a place we can go," she whispered. "A refugee haven run by aliens who oppose slavery. It's secret, neutral territory." Before Kevin could respond, the ship's proximity alarms blared. A Wadi pursuit vessel had navigated the asteroid field and was closing in fast. "We've got incoming," Kevin shouted, his hands tightening on the controls. Nira's voice rang out from behind them. "I can help. I was trained on Wadi weapon systems before." Her voice trailed off, the unspoken horror of her past hanging in the air. Kevin met Lita's eyes, seeing his own desperation mirrored there. "All right, Nira, take the defense grid. Lita, stay on navigation. Vela, strap in tight. This is going to get rough." The next few minutes were a blur of motion and adrenaline. Kevin piloted the Starbound through increasingly tight gaps between asteroids, his moves growing bolder with each passing second. Lita's insights proved invaluable, her instincts guiding them through paths Kevin would have missed. Nira proved to be a natural at the weapons console, her shots precise and timed perfectly to use the asteroids to their advantage. The pursuing Wadi ship was forced to divide its attention between chasing and evading, giving the Starbound a crucial edge. As they wove through the asteroid field, Kevin found himself working in perfect sync with Lita. Their movements became a dance, anticipating each other's actions without a word. The connection between them deepened, transcending their different species. Vela watched from her seat, her young eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. The ship shuddered with each near miss, the inertial dampeners struggling to keep up with the extreme maneuvers. Suddenly, Kevin saw an opportunity. A massive asteroid loomed ahead, its surface riddled with deep crevices. "Hold on!" he yelled, pushing the Starbound's engines to their limit. They plunged into a narrow fissure, the ship's hull scraping against rock. Behind them, Nira fired a carefully aimed shot, triggering a cascade of smaller asteroids that sealed the entrance. For a moment, silence reigned in the cockpit. Then, as one, they all let out a breath they hadn't realized they'd been holding. "We did it," Lita said softly, her hand finding Kevin's in the dim light of the cockpit. But their moment of victory was short-lived. The navigation console sputtered, displays flickering ominously. "We're lost," Kevin realized, the weight of their situation settling on his shoulders. "And we're low on supplies." He looked around at the three Wadi sisters, their alien features now familiar and dear to him. They were fugitives, hunted by two governments, stranded in an unknown region of space. And yet, Kevin felt a sense of purpose he'd never known before. "Listen up," he said, activating the ship-wide comm. "I know we're in a tough spot, but I promise you this. I will do everything in my power to keep you safe and find us a new home, whatever it takes." As his words echoed through the starbound, Kevin saw hope kindle in the eyes of Lita, Nira, and Vela. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, filled with dangers both external and internal. But looking at the three sisters, he felt ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them. With drive, Kevin turned back to the controls. They had a ship to repair, supplies to ration, and a safe haven to find. Their journey was far from finished. Over. Their journey was just beginning. As the starbound drifted through the asteroid field, the initial rush of their escape faded, replaced by the harsh reality of their situation. The ship's systems blinked warning lights, fuel levels dropping dangerously low. Kevin's stomach growled, reminding him of another pressing issue. "We need to find supplies," he announced, scanning the ship's readouts. His eyes landed on a nearby planetoid, its atmosphere registering as breathable. "There, we can land and search for resources." Lita leaned in, her shoulder brushing against his. "Are you sure it's safe?" Kevin shook his head. "No, but we don't have much choice." The descent was rougher than he'd like, the starbound's damaged systems protesting every movement. As they touched down on the planetoid's surface, Kevin breathed a sigh of relief. "Stay close," he warned the sisters as they exited the ship. The alien landscape stretched before them, a mix of rocky terrain and strange, twisting vegetation. They hadn't gone far when Vela spotted it, a structure jutting out from behind a rocky outcropping. As they approached, Kevin's breath caught in his throat. The abandoned outpost bore unmistakable signs of human design. "Impossible," he muttered, running his hand along the familiar contours of the airlock. Inside, they found a treasure trove. Functional life support systems hummed quietly, and stockpiles of food and water lined the walls. Kevin's mind raced, connecting the dots between this outpost and Earth's early colonization attempts. As they gathered supplies, Kevin found himself hyper-aware of Lita's presence. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same container, sending a jolt through his system. Their eyes met, and for a moment the universe seemed to shrink to just the two of them. The moment shattered as Nira called out, "There's a ship approaching!" Kevin's heart raced as he checked the outpost's sensors. The incoming vessel was human, the Intrepid. A familiar voice crackled over the comm system. "This is Commander Marcus Steele of the Intrepid. Kevin, I know you're down there. Come out and let's talk." Kevin's mind whirled. Marcus was an old acquaintance, but he was also here to apprehend them. Weighing his options, Kevin decided to face this head-on. As they emerged from the outpost, Kevin saw the conflict in Marcus's eyes. He knew his friend was torn between duty and personal beliefs. "Marcus," Kevin began, "I know why you're here, but you have to listen. These sisters, they were being sold into slavery. I couldn't stand by and do nothing." Marcus's gaze shifted to Lita and her sisters, his expression softening. "Tell me everything," he said. Kevin laid out the whole story, from the marketplace to their daring escape. As he spoke, he saw Marcus's dedication wavering. "Damn it, Kevin," Marcus sighed. "You always did have a knack for complicating things." He ran a hand through his hair, then nodded. "All right, I can't officially help you, but I can give you updated star charts and information on safe routes to this refugee haven." Relief washed over Kevin. "Thank you, Marcus. I owe you one." As they prepared to leave, the ground shook beneath their feet. The outpost's ancient defense systems had activated, targeting both ships. "We need to shut it down," Kevin shouted over the rumble of charging weapons. Working in tandem, Kevin, Lita, and Marcus raced to deactivate the system. Their movements were fluid, anticipating each other's actions without words. As the final failsafe disengaged, Kevin caught Lita's eye, seeing his own exhilaration mirrored there. With the immediate danger averted, Marcus pulled Kevin aside. "Listen, I'll mislead my superiors about your location, but you need to be careful. The situation between Earth and the Wadi is getting tense. Find a diplomatic solution, or this could blow up into something much bigger." Kevin nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. As the Intrepid departed, he found himself alone in the Starbound's cockpit with Lita. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Lita's hand found his, her touch sending tingles up his arm. "Kevin," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. He turned to her, drawn by an irresistible force. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, years of cultural differences melting away in an instant of connection. The moment shattered as an alert blared from the ship's console. Kevin reluctantly pulled away, checking the readout. His eyes widened. "There's a massive energy signature ahead," he announced, adjusting their course. As they emerged from the cover of a nearby nebula, they saw it, a colossal space station, its architecture unlike anything Kevin had ever seen. "Heaven's Gate," Lita breathed, awe in her voice. The comm system crackled to life. "Unidentified vessel, this is Haven's Gate Control. State your intentions." Kevin took a deep breath, exchanging a look with Lita. This was it, the moment of truth. As he opened his mouth to respond, he knew that whatever came next would change their lives forever. Kevin opened his mouth to respond, but before he could utter a word, the comm system crackled with another transmission. A deep, authoritative voice filled the cockpit. "This is Admiral Krelthan of the Wadi Defense Force. Surrender the fugitives immediately or face the consequences." Kevin's heart sank as he saw a massive Wadi warship emerge from behind Haven's Gate, its weapons systems powering up. He exchanged a worried glance with Lita, whose face had drained of color. "Haven's Gate Control," Kevin said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. "We seek sanctuary. These Wadi citizens are refugees fleeing unjust persecution." There was a tense pause before Haven's Gate responded. "Understood, Starbound. Proceed to Docking Bay 3. We'll handle the Wadi vessel." As Kevin maneuvered the ship towards the indicated bay, a new voice joined the conversation. "This is Zorax, leader of Haven's Gate. Admiral Krelthan, we are a neutral station committed to providing sanctuary for those in need. Your demands violate our sovereign rights." The Admiral's response was immediate and harsh. "These are not refugees, Zorax. They are victims of human trafficking and must be returned to their homeworld. Your claims of neutrality are irrelevant in this matter." Kevin guided the Starbound into the docking bay, his mind racing. As the ship touched down, he turned to Lita and her sisters. "Stay close. We're not out of this yet." They disembarked to find a welcoming committee led by Zorax, a tall, willowy alien with iridescent skin. "Welcome to Haven's Gate," Zorax said, their voice melodious. "We'll do our best to protect you, but the situation is volatile." No sooner had Zorax finished speaking than the station shuddered violently. Alarms blared as Zorax received an urgent communication. "The Wadi ship has opened fire," they announced, their calm demeanor cracking slightly. "Our shields are holding, but we can't withstand a prolonged assault." Kevin's military training kicked in. "Zorax, does the station have cloaking technology?" The alien leader nodded, their eyes widening with understanding. "Indeed, but it's never been used on a scale this large." "What if we evacuate the station while creating a holographic decoy?" Kevin proposed, his mind working furiously. "We could fool the Wadi long enough to get everyone to safety." Zorax considered for a moment, then nodded. "A bold plan, but it might just work. Come, we'll need your help to implement it." As Zorax coordinated the evacuation, Kevin and Lita raced to the station's control center. They worked side by side, programming the holographic decoy, their movements in perfect sync despite the high-pressure situation. "Kevin," Lita said softly as they worked, her fingers flying over the alien controls, "I need to tell you something." She took a deep breath. "The reason we were being sold, our family had no choice. The Wadi government, they—" Another impact rocked the station, cutting her off. Kevin placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Later," he said gently. "Right now, we need to focus on getting everyone out of here safely." Across the station, Nira had joined the security team, her Wadi weapons training proving invaluable as they prepared defensive measures. Vela, showing a maturity beyond her years, was helping coordinate the movement of refugees to escape pods. Just as the evacuation was nearing completion, a warning shot from the Wadi warship struck Haven's Gate. The impact sent Kevin and Lita sprawling, alarms blaring as systems failed throughout the station. "The power grid is down," Zorax's voice came through their communicators. "The holographic projection will fail without emergency repairs." Kevin and Lita shared a determined look before sprinting towards the damaged section. They squeezed into a narrow maintenance shaft, their bodies pressed close as they worked to reroute power and maintain the illusion. As Kevin reached for a circuit board, his hand brushed against Lita's. For a moment, the chaos around them faded away. Their eyes met, an unspoken current of attraction passing between them. But the moment passed as quickly as it had come, both refocusing on the task at hand. With the repairs complete and the holographic decoy stable, Kevin and Lita rushed back to the control center. They arrived just in time to see a group of Wadi commandos breach the station's outer defenses. "They're inside!" Nira's voice crackled over the comm. "We need backup in Sector 7. Kevin grabbed a weapon from a nearby security officer. "Lita, stay here and help Zorax coordinate the evacuation. Nira, I'm on my way." He sprinted through the station's winding corridors, the sounds of energy weapons and shouted orders growing louder. As he rounded a corner, he saw Nira pinned down by Wadi fire. Without hesitation, he dove into the fray, providing cover fire that allowed Nira to advance. The battle raged through Haven's Gate's halls, a chaotic dance of energy blasts and hand-to-hand combat. Kevin found himself fighting alongside the Wadi sisters, their teamwork flawless despite the dire circumstances. Suddenly, a Wadi commando's shot grazed Kevin's arm. He stumbled, pain searing through him, but managed to take cover behind a fallen piece of debris. Lita, who had joined the fight despite his earlier request, rushed to his side. "You're hurt," she said, her voice tight with concern. Kevin gritted his teeth. "I'm fine. We need to keep them from reaching the control center." Lita's eyes narrowed with grit. "I can help." She placed her hand on his wounded arm, and Kevin felt a strange warmth spread through his body. To his amazement, the pain began to subside, the wound knitting itself closed. "How did you—" Kevin began, but Lita shook her head. "Later," she said, echoing his earlier words, "we have a station to defend." As they prepared to rejoin the fight, Vela's voice came through their comms. "Kevin, Lita, I've found something. An hidden chamber with some kind of ancient technology. I think it might be able to help us." Kevin and Lita shared a look of hope. Perhaps this discovery would be the key to turning the tide of battle and securing their safety. With restored dedication, they set off to find Vela, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their quest for freedom and justice. With rekindled determination, Kevin and Lita rushed through the station's winding corridors, following Vela's directions to the hidden chamber. As they approached, the distant sounds of battle grew fainter, replaced by an eerie hum emanating from behind a seamless metallic door. Vela stood before it, her eyes wide with excitement. "I think I've figured out how to open it," she said, pressing her hand against a barely visible panel. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a cavernous room filled with pulsing, otherworldly technology. At its center stood a towering crystalline structure, its facets reflecting light in mesmerizing patterns. "What is this place?" Kevin breathed, taking a cautious step inside. Before anyone could respond, the station shuddered violently. Zorax's voice crackled over their comms. "The Wadi forces have breached our last line of defense. We need to evacuate now." Kevin's mind raced. "Vela, can you interface with this technology? Maybe we can use it to our advantage." Nodding, Vela approached the crystal structure, her hands hovering over its surface. As her fingers made contact, the entire room hummed to life, holographic displays materializing around them. "It's some kind of advanced teleportation system," Vela exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. "I think I can reconfigure it to transport the entire station." Another explosion rocked Haven's Gate. "We're out of time," Kevin shouted. "Do it!" Vela's fingers danced across the holographic interface, the crystal pulsing with increasing intensity. A blinding light enveloped them, and Kevin felt a strange sensation, as if his entire body was being pulled apart and reassembled. When the light faded, Kevin blinked in disbelief. Through the station's viewports, he saw not the familiar stars of their previous location, but a new celestial landscape. The Wadi warship was nowhere in sight. "We did it," Lita breathed, her hand finding Kevin's. "We're safe." Their relief was short-lived. As the adrenaline of their escape faded, Kevin realized they faced a new challenge. The station's systems were failing, damaged by the battle and strained by the massive teleportation. "Zorax," Kevin called over the comm. "What's our status?" The alien leader's voice was grim. "Life support is failing. We need to find a safe harbor, and quickly." Kevin turned to the view screen, his heart sinking as he recognized the nearby celestial bodies. They had teleported to the outskirts of Earth's solar system. "I know where we can go," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "But it might create more problems than it solves." As Kevin input the coordinates for Earth, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were jumping from the frying pan into the fire. The Starbound, carrying the battered Haven's Gate in its tractor beam, limped towards humanity's homeworld. Days later, as Earth's blue orb grew larger in their view screen, Kevin's fears were realized. The planet's orbital defense system locked onto their approach, unswayed by their distress signals. "Unidentified vessels," a stern voice crackled over the comm. "You are in violation of Earth's sovereign space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Kevin exchanged a worried glance with Lita. "This is Kevin Chen, former Earth Alliance officer. We have refugees in need of immediate medical attention. Please, we mean no harm." There was a long pause before the voice responded. "Proceed to docking bay Alpha 7 on the orbital station. Any deviation from this course will be met with lethal force." As they approached the imposing structure of Earth's orbital station, Kevin felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They had escaped immediate danger, but he knew the challenges ahead might prove even more daunting. The Starbound shuddered as the station's tractor beam took hold, guiding them into a cavernous docking bay. As the airlock sealed behind them, Kevin turned to the Wadi sisters. "Stay close," he warned. "Earth's stance on alien visitors has always been complicated." No sooner had the words left his mouth than the docking bay doors slid open, revealing a squad of heavily armed Earth security forces. Their weapons trained on the ship's exit ramp, faces set in unyielding commitment. "All occupants of the vessel, exit with your hands visible," a mechanized voice commanded. Kevin stepped out first, his hands raised. "My name is Kevin Chen. I'm traveling with refugees who need asylum and medical attention." A tall, stern-faced man in an admiral's uniform stepped forward. "I'm Admiral Jonathan Hawke. You and your companions are hereby detained for questioning. Guards, separate them for processing." "Wait," Kevin protested as armored guards moved to flank the Wadi sisters. "They're not a threat. They need protection." His words fell on deaf ears. Kevin watched helplessly as Lita and her sisters were led away, fear evident in their eyes. As a guard roughly grabbed his arm, Kevin locked eyes with Lita one last time before she disappeared through a security door. "You've started quite the interstellar incident, Mr. Chen," Admiral Hawke said, his voice cold. "I suggest you start explaining yourself. Now." As Kevin was marched towards a stark interrogation room, his mind raced. He had brought the Wadi sisters to Earth seeking safety, but now he feared he might have delivered them into an entirely new kind of danger. The battle for their freedom, it seemed, was a long way to go. Kevin's mind reeled as he was led away from the Wadi sisters. The stark walls of the interrogation room closed in around him, a far cry from the vastness of space he'd grown accustomed to. Admiral Hawke stood across from him, his stern gaze unwavering. "Let's start from the beginning, Mr. Chen," Hawke said, his voice crisp and authoritative. "How did you come to be in possession of an alien vessel and 3 non-human passengers?" Kevin took a deep breath, steeling himself for the lengthy explanation ahead. He recounted the events that led to his encounter with the Wadi sisters, their escape from slavery, and the harrowing journey that brought them to Earth. As he spoke, he could see a mix of skepticism and intrigue flicker across the Admiral's face. Hours passed as Kevin answered, question after question, his throat dry and his mind exhausted. Just as he thought the interrogation might never end, the door burst open. A young officer rushed in, her face flushed with urgency. "Admiral," she said, breathless, "we've received word from the Interstellar Relations Committee. They're convening an emergency session and requesting Mr. Chen's presence." Hawke's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Very well," he said, turning to Kevin. "It seems you've stirred up quite the political hornet's nest, Chen. Let's go. Kevin was escorted through a maze of corridors, the buzz of activity growing louder with each step. They entered a grand chamber, its curved walls lined with screens displaying faces from various corners of Earth and beyond. At the center stood a podium where a stern-faced woman was calling the session to order. We are here today to address the unprecedented situation brought to our doorstep by former Earth Alliance officer Kevin Chen, she announced. Mr. Chen, please step forward and give your testimony. Kevin approached the podium, his heart pounding. He spoke clearly and passionately about the Wadi sisters' plight, the harsh realities of their enslaved existence, and the dangers they faced in seeking freedom. As he finished, a murmur rippled through the assembled dignitaries. Next, Lita was called to testify. Kevin watched in awe as she stepped up, her iridescent skin shimmering under the chamber's lights. Her voice, though trembling at first, grew stronger as she recounted her experiences. We were treated as property, Lita said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Our lives were not our own, but here, on Earth, we've tasted freedom for the first time. We ask for your protection, not just for ourselves, but for all those who suffer under Wadi oppression. Her words hung in the air, their impact palpable. The committee members leaned in, clearly moved by her testimony. As Lita stepped down, her gaze met Kevin's, and he felt a surge of pride and something deeper, something he wasn't quite ready to name. The session continued, with experts on interstellar law and alien cultures offering their perspectives. The debate grew heated at times, with some arguing for caution in Earth's approach to alien affairs, while others advocated for a more proactive stance against injustice. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Screens flickered to life, displaying a terrifying sight: a massive Wadi battle fleet entering the solar system. We've received a transmission, a technician announced, his voice tight with tension. It's from the fleet's commander, General Zarkon. He's demanding the immediate return of his daughters. The chamber erupted into chaos. Voices shouted over one another, fear and anger mingling in the air. Kevin's eyes found Lita and her sisters, huddled together, their faces masks of terror. Admiral Hawk stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. We must show these aliens the full might of Earth's defenses, he declared. We cannot allow them to dictate terms in our own solar system. As the Admiral continued to advocate for a military response, Kevin's mind raced. He knew that such an action could lead to devastating consequences for both Earth and the Wadi. There had to be another way. Wait, Kevin called out, surprising himself with the force of his voice. The chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to him. I have a proposal. Let me meet with General Zarkon face to face. We can arrange a meeting on neutral ground, perhaps the orbital station around Mars. It's our best chance to avoid a conflict that could cost countless lives. The committee members exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves. Kevin held his breath, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. Your proposal is risky, Mr. Chen, she said, her voice measured. But given the circumstances, it may be our best option. We will make the necessary arrangements. However, be aware that the fate of Earth-Wadi relations may rest on the outcome of this meeting. As the session adjourned and preparations began, Kevin found himself ushered into a secured facility along with the Wadi sisters. The next few days would be crucial, and they needed to be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. In the relative calm of their new quarters, Kevin turned to Lita, noticing the play of emotions across her iridescent features. Are you okay? He asked softly. Lita's gaze met his, a mix of fear and dedication in her eyes. I never thought I'd face my father again, she admitted. But I'm ready. We've come too far to turn back now. Kevin nodded, reaching out to squeeze her hand gently. As their fingers intertwined, he felt a jolt of electricity pass between them, a reminder of the growing connection they shared. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. Together. As Kevin's hand lingered on Lita's, a soft chime interrupted the moment. A holographic message materialized before them, its official seal indicating an urgent communique from Earth's government. We are to return to Earth immediately, Kevin read aloud, his brow furrowing. They've agreed to continue negotiations there. Lita's iridescent skin shimmered with a mix of anticipation and concern. "What about my father? Will he be coming as well?" Kevin nodded, scanning the rest of the message. "General Zarkon and the Earth delegation will be joining us. It seems they're turning this into a full-scale diplomatic event." The journey back to Earth was tense, the Starbound's corridors buzzing with nervous energy. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, Kevin couldn't help but marvel at the blue-green orb growing larger in the view screen. It had been so long since he'd seen his homeworld. Their landing was met with a cacophony of sound and color. Crowds had gathered outside the spaceport, their signs and banners creating a patchwork of support and protest. "Aliens go home," read one placard, while another proclaimed, "Welcome, galactic neighbors." As Kevin and the Wadi sisters disembarked, flanked by security personnel, the roar of the crowd intensified. Lita instinctively moved closer to Kevin, her hand brushing against his for reassurance. "It's okay," he murmured, trying to project calm he didn't entirely feel. "We're safe here." They were quickly ushered into a waiting transport, but not before catching glimpses of the media frenzy. Holographic news drones buzzed overhead, their lenses fixed on the unlikely group of humans and aliens. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of meetings, interviews, and security briefings. Earth's government, seeing an opportunity for a diplomatic coup, had organized a world summit to address interstellar slavery and refugee rights. Kevin found himself thrust into the role of key advisor, his unique perspective valued by both human and alien delegates. He spent long hours in strategy sessions, trying to bridge the gap between vastly different cultures and value systems. One evening, as he was reviewing notes for the upcoming summit, a knock at his door startled him. He opened it to find Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her eyes bright with excitement. "Kevin, I've made a breakthrough," she said, hardly waiting for an invitation before entering the room. "The Wadi sisters' empathic abilities, they're not just a random mutation. It's a suppressed evolutionary trait of their entire species." Kevin's mind reeled at the implications. "Are you saying that all Wadi have the potential for these abilities?" Elena nodded vigorously. "Exactly, and there's more. I've developed a treatment that could activate these latent abilities in willing Wadi individuals. It could revolutionize their entire society." As they discussed the ramifications of this discovery, another knock interrupted them. This time, it was Nira, her military bearings softened by a look of purpose. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, her gaze taking in the scattered datapads and holographic displays. "I wanted to let you know that I've been working with Earth's defense forces. We're developing new strategies to combat the interstellar slave trade." Kevin felt a surge of pride. "That's fantastic, Nira. Your insights could save countless lives." As the days passed, Kevin found himself constantly amazed by the Wadi sisters' adaptability. Vela, the youngest, had become an unexpected voice for change, her testimony about Wadi corruption inspiring a youth movement on Earth. But it was Lita who occupied most of Kevin's thoughts. Between summit preparations, they found moments to explore Earth together. He showed her the Grand Canyons of Mars, now terraformed into lush valleys, and the glittering underwater cities of Europa. Their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. Conservative factions on both Earth and the Wadi homeworld voiced their disapproval of what they saw as an unnatural union. But for Kevin and Lita, each shared experience only strengthened their bond. As the summit approached, tension in the city reached a fever pitch. Anti-alien sentiment, fueled by fear and misinformation, began to manifest in more than just angry words. Reports of attacks on alien embassies and cultural centers flooded in from across the globe. Kevin, Lita, and Nira found themselves working alongside Earth's security forces, trying to protect alien diplomats and civilians. It was during one such mission that disaster struck. They had received intelligence about a planned attack on a Centaurian delegation. Racing to intercept the assailants, Kevin and Lita found themselves caught in the crossfire. Without hesitation, Kevin threw himself in front of Lita as an explosion rocked the building. The world went dark, pain blooming across Kevin's body. He was vaguely aware of Lita's voice, desperate and filled with fear, calling his name. Then nothing. He awoke in a medical facility, the sterile white walls a stark contrast to the chaos of his last conscious moments. Lita was there, her hand clasped tightly around his, her skin pulsing with a soft, healing light. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm not leaving your side." As Kevin drifted in and out of consciousness, he became aware of other presences in the room. General Zarkon's deep voice rumbled nearby, discussing something in urgent tones with Dr. Rodriguez. "The treatment is ready," Elena was saying. "If you're willing, we can activate your latent empathic abilities. It could change everything." Kevin forced his eyes open, watching as the Wadi general struggled with the decision. Finally, Zarkon nodded. "Do it," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of his choice. "It's time for change." As the medical staff prepared for the procedure, Kevin felt Lita's grip on his hand tighten. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The summit was about to begin, and with it, the potential for a new era in human-alien relations. But first, they had to survive the storm that was brewing both on Earth and across the stars. Galaxy. As Kevin drifted off, his mind filled with visions of a future where humans and aliens could coexist in harmony. The next morning, Kevin awoke to find the medical facility abuzz with activity. Dr. Rodriguez was conferring with a team of Wadi physicians, their animated discussion punctuated by holographic displays of brain scans and genetic data. General Zarkon stood nearby, his normally stern features softened by a look of wonder. "It worked," Elena said, noticing Kevin's alertness. "The treatment activated the general's latent empathic abilities. We're seeing similar results in other Wadi volunteers." Kevin struggled to sit up, wincing at the lingering pain from his injuries. Lita was at his side in an instant, her touch soothing and supportive. "What does this mean for the summit?" he asked. Before anyone could answer, a chime sounded, and a holographic projection of Admiral Hawk materialized in the room. "We're ready to begin," the Admiral announced. "Mr. Chen, your presence is requested, if you're able." With Lita's help, Kevin made his way to the summit chamber. The scene that greeted them was one of controlled chaos. Delegates from dozens of worlds filled the room, their varied forms and colors, a testament to the diversity of sentient life. At the center, Earth's leadership stood alongside representatives from the Wadi government. As Kevin and Lita took their seats, Earth's president stepped forward. The chamber fell silent, all eyes and sensory organs fixed on the podium. "Today," the president began, her voice steady and clear, "we stand at a crossroads. The events of recent weeks have forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about the state of our galaxy. We can no longer turn a blind eye to the suffering of sentient beings, regardless of their planet of origin." A murmur rippled through the crowd as the president continued. "Therefore, it is my honor to announce that Earth officially recognizes the refugee status of Lita, Nira, and Vela, the Wadi sisters who have shown us the true meaning of courage and perseverance." Applause erupted from many of the delegates, though Kevin noticed some remained stoically silent. The president raised her hand, calling for quiet. "But we must go further. Today, Earth proposes a revolutionary interstellar accord on sentient rights. This document will enshrine the fundamental freedoms and protections that all thinking, feeling beings deserve, regardless of their species or planet of origin." The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices. Some delegates cheered, while others shouted objections. Kevin watched as the Wadi representatives huddled together, their expressions a mix of shock and uncertainty. Over the next hours, Kevin found himself called upon repeatedly to testify. He recounted his experiences, from the dusty marketplace where he first encountered the sisters to the harrowing escape from the slave ship. Each time he spoke, he felt Lita's presence beside him, her quiet strength bolstering his determination. As the debate raged on, Dr. Rodriguez presented her findings on Wadi empathic abilities. The holographic displays showed the dramatic changes in General Zarkon's neural patterns, eliciting gasps from the audience. "The suppression of these abilities has been detrimental not just to individuals," Elena explained, "but to Wadi society as a whole. By embracing this aspect of their nature, the Wadi have the potential to transform their culture and their place in the galaxy." Just as the summit seemed to be reaching a tipping point, an urgent message came through. The view screens around the chamber flickered to life, showing scenes of chaos from the Wadi homeworld. The coup attempt had reached a critical stage, with reformists and traditionalists clashing in the streets of major cities. General Zarkon stepped forward, his face etched with concern. "I must address my people," he said, his voice carrying a new depth of emotion. Perhaps with these new abilities, I can make them understand." The chamber fell silent as Zarkon began to speak. His words, translated for the benefit of the non-Wadi delegates, resonated with raw honesty and newfound empathy. He spoke of the pain of separation from his daughters, the shame of realizing the harm his society had perpetrated, and the hope for a better future. As Zarkon's speech concluded, Kevin felt a spark of inspiration. He turned to Admiral Hawk and the Earth delegation, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to act," Kevin said, his voice steady despite the gravity of his proposal. "Earth has a unique opportunity here. We could lead a peacekeeping mission to the Wadi homeworld, help stabilize the situation, and oversee a transition to a more equitable society." The Earth delegates exchanged glances, weighing the risks and potential rewards of such a bold move. After a tense moment, Admiral Hawk nodded. "It's a gamble," he said, "but one that could prove humanity's worth on the galactic stage." As plans for the peacekeeping mission quickly took shape, Kevin turned to Lita, Nira, and Vela. "We're the best qualified to bridge the gap between Earth and the Wadi," he said. "Are you willing to join the mission?" The sisters exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Lita spoke for them all. "We started this journey together," she said, her hand finding Kevin's. "We'll see it through to the end." As the summit chamber buzzed with activity, preparations for the unprecedented Joint Earth-Wadi peacekeeping mission began in earnest. Kevin felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as he contemplated the challenges that lay ahead. The fate of two worlds, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. But with Lita by his side and the support of both human and Wadi allies, he felt ready to face whatever came next. The mission would depart within hours, racing against time to prevent full-scale civil war on the Wadi homeworld. As Kevin and Lita made their way to the launch bay, surrounded by a flurry of activity, they paused for a moment, their eyes meeting in a silent exchange of hope and willpower. The next chapter of their journey was about to begin, and its outcome would reshape the future of interstellar relations for generations to come.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.